The Ohio State Buckeyes and Ryan Day are cooking on the recruiting trail. Currently the number one class in 2025. They got 4 commitments in 3 days. A massive weekend getting guys like TJ Alford, 4-star linebacker, London Merritt, a 4-star edge, Desi Jones, a 4-star wide receiver, and his teammate Deshaun Stewart, who's a 4-star corner. So the bottom line here is Ohio State is on a roll. What does it mean for Ohio State long term? What does it mean for this class? On a macro level, we'll talk about it right now, but first things first, Ohio State Buckeye fans, man, if you're new to the program, you're new to the channel, welcome. We're glad to have y'all here. We talk college football year-round. Games, recruiting, portal, anything and everything that has to do with the sport that you and I both love with every fiber of our being. If you're a football psycho, a college football psycho, you found your spot right here, okay? So subscribe to the On3 YouTube channel. We're glad to have y'all here. A lot ahead of us here. Spring ball, portal season, all the way into media days and the beautiful thing that is college football season. Want y'all a part of it. Cannot stress that enough. If you're on board and you've subscribed, thank you. We love you. All right, let's get rolling here. So, Ohio State, as I mentioned, 4 commitments in 3 days. They're cooking. Currently the number one class in all of America. And you and I already probably saw it on the Twitter sphere. There's a lot of naysayers out there opposing fan bases. It's kind of what Twitter is for, is talking your smack. And they're saying things like, well, you know, how many of those guys are really going to sign? How many of those guys are really going to stick with the Buckeyes? You know, long way till signing day. It's true. Long way till that first signing period. It's also true that the recruiting game, from my estimation, is a game of runs. You have a big weekend. Someone else in your conference has a big weekend. Guys flip, guys stick, like all that. Josh Newberg and I were talking about this earlier before we went on the air here. You hear a lot about the flips, and that gets the most airtime because it's the most interesting. But honestly, most guys in this class, I have to believe, barring something drastic happening, are probably going to stick with their commitment to Ohio State. That's my opinion. The other thing that I think is important to note here, Ohio State, at the time of us recording this, have 11 commitments in the class of 2025. This class is slowly but surely starting to take shape. And the reason why that's important, yes, guys are going to, take visits elsewhere and look around. And, it's going to come down to probably National Signing Day until things are finalized. That's kind of the way that college football works right now. But I think when you have a class that's as stacked as Ohio State's is right now, as it starts to solidify itself all the way through with how much pure talent they have, kids see that, and kids want to be a part of that. Like, it's kind of a chicken or the egg situation. Talent, in my opinion, helps secure more talent, right? Like, that's just kind of the nature of the game. So for Ohio State to be on the run they're on right now, I think it's encouraging. And I think, again, the flips and all that, that's going to get the most airtime and the most headlines, but I have to believe that the way that Ohio State is sitting right now is pretty encouraging for the way this class is going to shape up when it comes to National Signing Day, and we're sitting here at this desk talking about what the Buckeyes did and the class they ultimately landed in 2025. So on a macro level, we talk college football on this show, and I think it's important for us to address the Ryan Day slander in the room, because folks are very, very quick to talk about what he hasn't done against Michigan and the big games they've lost and all that. And, to some degree, there's a bit of fairness baked into that. We're not going to turn our head and just say that's nonsense. But I keep being told college football is a talent acquisition game. I keep being told it's about the Jimmies and the Joes. And Ryan Day, over the course of the last 6 months to a year, has dominated the talent acquisition game. I mean, look at what they did through the portal. Went and got an upgrade at quarterback, in my opinion, and Will Howard. Went and got one of the best backs, if not the best back in the SEC, in Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss. Got the best player in the transfer portal in Caleb Downs from Alabama. And, oh, by the way, you kept, by the way, that's important, you kept the top player, not the top receiver, the top player in the class of 2024 in Jeremiah Smith. And then they went out and got the top quarterback in the class of 2024 via the short-term signee through the transfer portal in Julian Sayin, really just because they felt like it. That quarterback room was already stacked. So you keep telling me now that Ohio State, they're acquiring talent. Talent acquisition is the name of the game in college football. Why is Ryan Day not going to succeed? People are going to say, well, they're not tough enough. Really? By whose standard? Well, that game against Michigan, is it more likely that Ohio State isn't tough enough to win a national championship, or that maybe Michigan just had a really tough football team for the better part of the last 3 seasons? If you want some help answering that question, let's go ahead and look at what the NFL draft is going to say about that team at Michigan. They're about to have something crazy like 20 dudes drafted, all right? So I'm not excusing losing to Michigan if you're Ohio State. There is no excuse for that. But I think when you start to fill in the blanks a little bit more fully, when you look at this thing from more of a 3D perspective, Ohio State has done a lot of the right things to become a tougher outfit. And I think they're on the doorstep of becoming a national champion. Had a top 10 defense last year, top 5 defense even. They bring back everybody, and you add the top player in the transfer portal in Caleb Downs, like I just mentioned a second ago. You allowed top 20 in the country in terms of yards per carry defensively. You got a stable of backs to really move the needle in terms of what you want to do from a game control, pound the rock kind of tempo. Like Ohio State, I think with what Ryan Day is building there, it's still evolving, and folks want to be very quick to jump at a punchline and say what he can't do. Like, we forget, again, they are a field goal away from being that team that ends up drubbing TCU in the national title game. Then what's the narrative around Ryan Day? Then what's the narrative around Ohio State and what he can't do? Now, I understand the kick didn't go through. They didn't beat Georgia. But let's be a little bit more nuanced with how we evaluate Ryan Day and how we evaluate Ohio State. Because here's the deal, man. It is very clear that Ohio State is willing to play ball when it comes to talent acquisition. Interpret that however you want. Interpret it from an NIL perspective. Interpret it from a staff perspective, being aggressive on the recruiting trail. However you want to slice it, Ohio State is playing ball. And that is a problem for the entire college football landscape. Because with that brand power, with that staff they have in-house right now, they start winning. It's going to kind of have a snowball effect. And I'll go ahead and say this right now. If Ohio State continues to acquire talent at the level they're acquiring it now within the last 6 months, it's not a matter of if they win a national championship. It is a matter of when they win a national championship with Ryan Day. Because we all understand this. You want to win on the field, it starts with winning on the recruiting trail, both portal and at the high school level. And Ryan Day, I think, in the course of the last 6 months, has been as good as anybody else in the country. So if this is a tempo setter for them going forward, this is how they're going to operate here into the future, it's trouble for the rest of college football. And I think Ohio State has a little bit of an edge to them this year. I think they hear all the things that are said about them. And I think they got a roster now to really make some noise. And by the looks of how they're recruiting right now in 2025, that roster talent looks to be pretty stable going into the future. So Ohio State, they're cooking, number 1 class in America. Also worth noting, they got some more targets on the board. At the time of us recording this, Jamie French, 4-star wide receiver. We'll see where Ohio State lands there. David Sanders, 5-star plus offensive tackle. We'll see what happens there. Steve Wiltfong, new member to On3. He wasted no time putting in an RPM pick for 4-star running back Jordan Davis. So keep your eyes peeled for all things Ohio State recruiting, all things recruiting period in college football, all things college football. This show, The Hard Count, we got you covered year-round. So make sure you're subscribed. If you're already subscribed, heck, just double-check you're subscribed. We've got a live show tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. We're always talking ball all year round. We're college football junkies. So if you're a junkie for college football, you found your home. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.